Howdy y'all, Ducky here, aka the Murdoch, and we're back in this video with a little something different. This video is going to be a video about photography, in particular my photography, and kind of my attempts to become a more considerate photographer. It's something I've been getting into more and more over the last several months. I'm inspired doing, this video stuff that I've been doing, and that's kind of translated over into wanting to do some more still photography. Recently I had a trip to Maui for my honeymoon. I wanted to do a cell phone photography challenge. I have a Samsung Galaxy S7 in which I took somewhere between like 10 and 12 really solid photos just using my cell phone of just really cool shots or interesting shots, trying to do different things. I also wanted to do this challenge only using my phone for any editing I wanted to do. Some of this might come across as a little bit pretentious, and I don't know that a lot of it's going to translate to people who might normally watch my videos, but it was the first time I was really taking photos consistently with sort of an attempt at sort of an artistic mindset or a considerate mindset at the very least. I hope you enjoy it. Number 1. The first shot that I took with sort of the intent of doing my little cell phone challenge thing was this shot here. This was our first day in Hana, and so one of the first things we did was we got some of the world famous shaved ice. What I like about this shot is the way the cups bisect the horizon and the colors. But once again, this was a picture where I had to add a lot of color back into the shot because this day was also kind of on the overcast side, and you can kind of tell that in the sky itself. I was kind of being a little bit anal about trying to get a decent shot with my camera and the phone. I think I finally walked away with one that's decent enough. I hope you dig it. Number 2. This is like on our third day in Maui, and we decided to do the road to Hana. So for this shot, what you're seeing here is of my little point and shoot Nikon on these rocks right at the shore. It's sort of another example of where I'm a little bit obsessed with the mixture of the man-made with nature. I did once again have to, crop of course, and play with the colors a little bit. I cooled the picture down. I think it turned out pretty well. It's one of my favorite shots of the trip. I hope you dig it. Number 3. So for this next shot, all you really need to know was we were on a boat and we were doing our snorkeling expedition. I happened to notice this rope tied around that railing you see there. It's wrapped around like twice and then kind of cuts down straight out of frame there, and I just thought it was a really cool looking shot. Weighted to the right, and then you have that steel railing cutting through sort of like the center of the image, I suppose. I had to monkey with the colors a little bit, but I think it turned out nice. Hope you dig it. Number 4. The next photo here is possibly not the most exciting, and maybe not even the most exciting in this set, but it's one of my favorites. What you're seeing here is a light bulb. That's pretty obvious, right? This light bulb was just dangling in front of a doorway from an overhang in front of this Chinese restaurant. As we were walking up the steps, I happened to see this light bulb just dangling there. It's a little bit weird to me because it was just a bulb and the socket on the wire. I upped the contrast a little bit. I blew out the whites in there. I think the color is nice. And then, in particular, I really liked flipping the image upside down. I sort of think this creates sort of a weird feeling in the photo. It's definitely one of my favorites of the set. Maybe one of my very favorites that I took on the entire trip. Number 5. So Daisy and I were sitting down in Lahaina eating some Dole Whips when I noticed this weird freestanding telephone pole. And that's the shot you're seeing here. There were no lines whatsoever connected to it. And as we were sitting there eating those Dole Whips, I kind of became weirdly obsessed with this telephone pole on the right-hand side of the picture here. The dead end sign, the fact that it's black and white, it looks vaguely creepy. Once again, I do like that you have the palm trees there, sort of in a grouping of 3. I'm not sure how most people would feel about it, because in a lot of ways, Daisy's sort of right, it doesn't really look like anything. But it's one that I really like, and like I said, I became weirdly obsessed with that stupid telephone pole. Number 6. This next shot here ends up being a little bit of a happy accident, mostly in the sense that I thought it was a cool looking composition, but then I didn't really realize when I was taking the photo, there's a little bit of extra storytelling going on here. I was just snapping pictures at the Old Lahaina luau. I came across this kind of gravelly, sandy dirt pit sort of thing, and I didn't really know what it was. Turns out that's where the pig was roasting. I thought this made for an interesting composition with the shovel on the right-hand side, those 2 rocks. It almost kind of has like a J or sort of a hook shape. What I did to make this photo a little more interesting, I went with a black and white, up the contrast. I think the gravel, the sand there, kind of creates a nice texture. You can see some of like the grain in the handle on the shovel, the rocks themselves. In the end, I think this one ends up being one of my stronger photos in this set. To be honest though, I'm not sure how it would resonate with others. Hope you enjoy it. Number 7. It's probably a good opportunity to talk about one of my more pretentious looking shots of our trip. So the shot you're going to be seeing here is a little bit of an attempt at abstract photography. Actually, you know what, to be honest, it really wasn't an attempt. When I was first taking this picture, it was just meant to be a cool looking picture of what it was. What you're seeing here is the candlelight in sort of this cube candle holder or whatever, and it's like ribbed and very angular. Pushed against the wall, the light catching the vertical grooves in the wall, and it creates sort of a nice effect here. I monkeyed with all like the contrast and the color and the settings and all that, but I think it looks really cool. So it's sort of those orangey yellow vertical lines on sort of a black field, and I just think it's an interesting image. Hope you like the shot. I know it's one of the weirder ones in the set, and certainly, you know, not one that maybe a lot of people are going to really dig or relate to, but it's weirdly one of my favorite shots. Number 8. This is the bench shot, and as I was sitting on the bench here, I noticed these kind of hard lines with the 3 bolts, and there was a cigarette that had kind of been lodged in like one of the little caverns that have kind of broken away over the years. It's a black and white shot, and I really upped the contrast, so you see really deep lines in the wood. The gaps between the planks themselves create a really hard image, a really hard line, and then you have the 3 bolts on the left-hand side, and then you have sort of the 2 bolts that are a little more visible because those pieces of wood hadn't worn away as much, but that center bolt there was kind of broken away, and you could still see it down in there. I'm really glad I just happened to see that cigarette in there. I think that's part of what makes it work, maybe part of the storytelling. Probably one of my favorite shots. Hope you dig it. Number 9. In a lot of ways, this is probably one of the nicer shots that I took for this challenge. It's a rock kind of on this like cliffside at the very beginning to the road to Hana. But on the way out to Paia, we stopped and I wanted to check out this lighthouse, which, to be honest, didn't really end up looking like a whole lot. I got this nice little rock that had been weathered, pockmarked, and all the little holes and caverns and alcoves in the rock itself sort of create a nice contrast to sort of like the light gray of the rock. Cuts into the horizon nicely. And the Galaxy S7 did a really good job of kind of picking up all the detail in the rock with the way the light was hitting it. It's certainly not one of my personal favorites, but it's probably one of the shots that's probably more palatable to most people. I really like the texture on the rock. I think that's sort of what makes it, and it sort of bisects that horizon nicely. Number 10. The grumpy looking guy sitting on a planter. If I name my photos, that would probably be the name of this one. This next shot was one of the last photos that I took walking the streets of Lahaina. I just happened to see this guy sitting on a planter box with his arms crossed, and he looked kind of grumpy, and unfortunately I didn't perfectly catch focus like on his face. When you desaturate things to black and white, that's a little bit more forgiving in terms of sharpness. And really this one was a little bit more about the storytelling, I think. Looking off screen there, breaking the rule of space. But I really like the way his shirt kind of matches sort of the lines of the bricks on the planter box, you know, those horizontal lines. And he's just got kind of this great grumpy little face. Definitely one of my favorite shots of the trip. I also like the 2 leaves on the ground there. But I think this shot works pretty well, especially in black and white. But I really like his expression, you know, just being a grumpy old guy in paradise. And that on its own is kind of this nice bit of a juxtaposition. This could be my favorite shot that I took. It's definitely a shot that I really like. I hope you enjoy it too. Well, there you go. That's pretty much going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. Hopefully some of these photos resonated with you somewhere. And if you enjoyed what you saw and you enjoyed me in some level, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. As I always say, it makes me feel like I accomplished something. I'm doing lots of different types of videos. I'm doing reviews of toys in Western films. I'm doing like vlogs and a lot of things like that. So, you know, if you're interested, I hope you stick around. I guess that's pretty much going to do it for this one. See you in the next one. Bye.